But first to the absurd and divisive doctrine of identity politics, which is embraced wholeheartedly by the Dan Andrews government. Isn't it comforting to know that some of the state's well-remunerated public servants whose salaries remained intact throughout Victoria's lengthy lockdown were busying themselves coming up with new and imaginative ways to be offended on behalf of the LGBTIQ community? I think I got all the letters in there. Yes, the state government has revised its LGBTIQ Inclusive Language Guide for public servants to ensure harmful terms such as Mr. and Mrs., he and she, and husband and wife are replaced with non-gendered, often grammatically incoherent but always politically correct terms such as they and them. The guide advises public servants to never assume a person's gender or pronouns and to practice their PC language and to always apologise immediately if they, God forbid, inadvertently misgender a member of the QTIPOC, queer, trans, intersex persons of colour communities. There are no fewer than 17 references to the term intersex and intersexism in the 11-page document that claims this newspeak is necessary to acknowledge the diversity of bodies, genders and relationships. Victorian public servants are advised that every job applicant should be asked what pronoun they use when invited for an interview. But the guide also warns to avoid asking people what terms they prefer. Having a preference can sound as if it's a choice, and most people do not feel if they have a choice in these matters. So asking what pronouns a person uses is inclusive, asking what terms they prefer is hurtful and marginalising. I hope you got that. On the one hand, it's tempting to dismiss this nonsense as a steaming pile of bollocks, but there is an ideology behind this movement that is organised, influential, and has gained a powerful foothold, not only in public institutions, but increasingly in the private sector. If you think this lunatic fringe of the identity politics movement exists only on university campuses or on Twitter, then you haven't been paying attention. Ideas that start out as absurd, because often they are absurd, are adopted in academia, normalised by popular culture, and before long they're in high schools and your workplaces. And those who don't submit are rebuked as transophobes, racists, misogynists, and a range of other slurs used to silence dissenting voices, even if those dissenting voices are very much mainstream and represent the majority view. Remember, singer Sam Smith announced his pronouns were no longer he and him, but now they and them. That happened last year. That saw newspapers across the globe dutifully mangle the English language to not offend the pop star and the powerful trans lobby. It didn't take long for Merriam-Webster Dictionary to amend the definition of they to include a single person whose gender identity is non-binary. Ceding linguistic territory to the radical left is not only foolish but divisive and destructive. Seems like every day there are absurd new terms for absurd new offences that do not exist in the minds of the majority. In the name of inclusion, we are asked to submit to toxic, unforgiving woke ideology. Even the term women has been deemed as non-inclusive, thus giving birth to a slew of new terms, including women spelt with an X, vulva owners and menstruators. I'm not making those up. Google them. They're out there and they are examples of inclusive language. I mean, reducing womanhood to a bodily part or function. Some of that trans-inclusive language seems to have a decidedly misogynistic bent to it. It's little wonder that the trans lobby has caused a fracture in the feminist movement. Though, it's got to be said, the majority of modern feminists are very much on board with the ideology. If you don't push back against this madness, then don't complain when it becomes the norm and we are all expected to list our pronouns on our CVs, Twitter and workplace profiles, or be deemed trans-exclusionary bigots.